What if the peace you have been searching for was never hidden in success, money, approval, or perfect circumstances? What if the answer was discovered more than 2,000 years ago, not by people living easy lives, but by emperors, slaves, soldiers, exiles, and men who faced war, disease, betrayal, poverty, and death? And what if the reason you feel anxious, overwhelmed, distracted, or trapped right now is not because your life is broken, but because no one ever taught you how to master your own mind? Today, that changes. Welcome to Wisdom of the Stoics. In this video, we are going to explore 12 powerful Stoic principles that can completely transform the way you think, the way you respond to pain, the way you handle pressure, and the way you live your everyday life. These are not empty motivational quotes. These are not soft words designed to make you feel good for a few minutes. These are battle-tested principles, used by some of the strongest minds in history to remain calm in chaos, disciplined in temptation, and courageous in suffering. And make sure you stay until the end, because principle number 12 is the one most people never truly understand. Yet it may be the key to building a life that cannot be shaken from the outside. Now, before we begin, imagine this. A man wakes before sunrise. The world is still dark. The city is silent. The air is cold. There are no crowds cheering, no servants praising him, no distractions, no noise. He sits alone with his thoughts and prepares his mind, not for an easy day, not for a perfect day, but for the hardest day possible. He knows that before the sun sets, someone may betray him. Someone may disappoint him. Bad news may arrive. Plans may collapse. People he trusts may fail him. Something he loves may be taken away. And yet, he is not afraid. He does not ask life to be gentle. He trains himself to be strong. That man was Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men who ever lived. He commanded armies, governed millions, faced wars on the borders of the empire, endured plague, political betrayal, personal grief, and unimaginable pressure. But every morning, instead of writing about conquest, luxury, fame, or power, he wrote privately about one thing: how to become a better human being. That was Stoicism. Stoicism was founded in Athens around 300 BC by Zeno of Citium, a merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck and discovered that losing external possessions did not mean losing himself. From there, Stoicism spread across the ancient world. It shaped emperors like Marcus Aurelius, statesmen like Seneca, and former slaves like Epictetus. And here is what makes Stoicism so different. It was never meant to be a philosophy trapped inside classrooms, libraries, or ivory towers. It was not created for people who wanted to sound intelligent. It was created for people who wanted to live wisely. Stoicism is practical. It is direct. It is a survival manual for the human soul. At its core, Stoicism teaches one life-changing truth. You cannot control everything that happens to you. But you can always control how you respond. And in that response, your entire life is decided. So let's begin. Principle number 1. The dichotomy of control. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This is the foundation of Stoic philosophy. If you understand this deeply, not just intellectually, but emotionally, your anxiety will begin to lose its grip on you. The Stoics divided life into two categories. First, there are things within your control: your thoughts, your judgments, your choices, your effort, your discipline, your honesty, your courage, your character. Second, there are things outside your control: other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, traffic, the past, the future, whether people praise you, whether people reject you, whether your plans unfold exactly as expected. Most people suffer because they confuse these two categories. They try to control what cannot be controlled, and they neglect what is completely within their power. They stay awake at night worrying about what someone thinks of them. They replay old conversations again and again. They imagine future disasters that may never happen. They waste emotional energy trying to force life to obey them. But life does not obey anyone. The Stoic response is simple, but powerful. Let go of what is not yours to control. Not because it does not matter. Not because you do not care. But because your suffering over it changes nothing. Your focus, however, changes everything. Epictetus understood this better than almost anyone. He was born a slave. He had no wealth, no political power, no control over his circumstances, and very little physical freedom. Yet he became one of the freest men in history. Why? Because he realized that the deepest prison is not made of chains, walls, or locked doors. The deepest prison is a mind controlled by fear, anger, desire, and the opinions of others. So here is your practice for today. Write down 3 things you have been worrying about. Then ask yourself honestly, can I control this? If the answer is no, practice letting it pass, like a cloud moving across the sky. If the answer is yes, take one clear action right now. Do not wait. Do not complain. Do not overthink. Act where you have power. Release where you do not. That is where freedom begins. Principle number 2, amor fati. Love your fate, Epictetus said. Do not seek for everything to happen as you wish, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. This principle goes beyond acceptance. Acceptance says, I can tolerate what happened. Amor fati says, I will love what happened because I will use it. That is a radical idea. Think about the hardest thing you have ever gone through. A failure, a betrayal, a loss, a broken relationship, a diagnosis, a moment when life did not just disappoint you, but broke something inside you. At the time, it may have felt meaningless, cruel, unfair. But look again. Who did it force you to become? What strength did it awaken in you? What illusion did it destroy? What truth did it reveal? The Stoics were not naive. They did not pretend pain does not hurt. They did not say loss is easy, betrayal is pleasant, or suffering is beautiful in the moment. What they understood was this: resisting reality multiplies suffering. Pain is one thing. But arguing with pain, hating life because of pain, and spending years wishing the past had been different, that creates a second wound. Amor fati teaches you to stop fighting reality and start transforming it. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, how can I use this? Instead of saying, this ruined my life, ask, what kind of person can this help me become? Instead of seeing hardship as proof that life is against you, see it as raw material for strength, wisdom, patience, humility, and courage. This does not mean you enjoy suffering. It means you refuse to waste it, because every obstacle carries a lesson. Every loss sharpens your awareness. Every failure can become training. Every difficult season can become the fire that forges your character. Amor fati is not passive resignation. It is a fierce embrace of life exactly as it is. It is standing in front of reality and saying, I did not choose this, but I will choose what it makes of me. And when you can do that, you are no longer merely surviving your life. You are becoming its author. And that is the real power of Stoicism. Not escaping pain, but transforming it into strength. Now the Stoics take us to another principle, one that sounds dark at first, but may be one of the most life-changing ideas ever practiced. Principle number 3, memento mori. Remember that you will die. Seneca wrote, let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Think about that for a moment. In ancient Rome, when a victorious general returned from war, the city would erupt into celebration. Crowds filled the streets. Trumpets echoed through the air. Flowers rained down from balconies as the general rode proudly through the city in a golden chariot. To everyone watching, he looked almost godlike. But standing beside him in that very chariot was a slave whose only task was to lean close and whisper the same words again and again into the general's ear. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. What a strange thing to say during a triumph. But the Romans understood something most people forget. Power fades. Glory fades. Youth fades. Every celebration eventually ends. The reminder was not meant to ruin the moment. It was meant to deepen it. It reminded the general not to become arrogant, not to lose himself in praise, not to believe he was above the reality every human being must face, because nothing humbles a person faster than remembering time is temporary. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people live as though they have endless tomorrows. They delay the difficult conversation they know they need to have. They postpone the dream they secretly care about. They tell themselves they will start someday. Someday they will travel. Someday they will write the book. Someday they will tell someone they love them. Someday they will finally become the person they want to be. But someday is a dangerous illusion. While we delay what truly matters, we fill our days with distractions, noise, and obligations that mean almost nothing in the end. Memento mori cuts through that illusion like a blade. It reminds you that your time is not infinite. Maybe you have decades left. Maybe you do not. None of us know. And suddenly the question changes. The question is no longer, how much time do I have? The real question becomes, am I truly living the time I have right now? That is what made the Stoics different. They did not let the awareness of death make them fearful. They let it make them awake. The thought of death clarified their priorities. It stripped away the trivial. It burned away ego, vanity, and pointless worry until only what truly mattered remained. And when you begin to see life that way, even ordinary moments start to feel sacred. A conversation with someone you love. A quiet morning. A walk beneath the evening sky. A deep breath. A chance to begin again. These moments stop feeling small once you remember they are limited. That leads directly into principle number 4. The present moment is all you have. Marcus Aurelius wrote 4 simple words to himself in his private journal. Confine yourself to the present. Not because it sounded poetic. Not because he expected the world to read it centuries later. He wrote it because he needed to remember it himself. Every single day. The past is gone. The future has not arrived. This moment, this breath, this decision, is the only thing that is truly real. And strangely enough, modern science now confirms what the Stoics understood intuitively thousands of years ago. Studies show that the human mind spends nearly half of its waking hours wandering, drifting into memories of the past or imagined futures. And during those moments, people consistently report feeling less happy, more anxious, and less fulfilled. The Stoics did not need scientific studies to tell them this. They experienced it directly. They understood that a man endlessly replaying yesterday's mistakes is not learning from them anymore. He is torturing himself with them. And the person who spends today terrified about tomorrow ends up losing both days at once. Because while the mind is trapped somewhere else, life quietly continues moving forward. The present moment is where your power exists. It is where decisions are made. It is where habits are formed. It is where relationships are built or broken. It is where courage happens. It is where your life actually unfolds. Not yesterday. Not next year. Here. Right now. And yet, most people spend their lives mentally absent from the very moments they are living. Have you ever noticed how often your body is in one place while your mind is somewhere completely different? You sit with family but think about work. You work while thinking about the future. You finally achieve something you wanted, yet your mind instantly races toward the next thing, like someone trying to drink water while already running toward another well. The Stoics believe peace begins when the mind returns home to the present. So start small. For the next hour after watching this video, notice where your attention goes. Every time your mind drifts into regret or worry, gently guide it back. Not with anger. Not with frustration. With patience. With curiosity. Like a river slowly returning to its course after a storm. And once you begin practicing presence, another Stoic principle begins to make sense. One that may sound uncomfortable at first, but contains extraordinary wisdom. Principle number 5. Negative visualization. Prepare for the worst. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." At first glance, this practice sounds pessimistic, maybe even unhealthy. Why would anyone deliberately imagine bad things happening? But stay with me here, because this is not about fear. It is not about becoming negative. And it is definitely not about living in anxiety. It is about preparation. The Stoics practiced something called premeditatio malorum, which means the premeditation of evils. In simple terms, they regularly imagined possible hardships before those hardships arrived. Not obsessively, not emotionally, rationally, because they understood something profound. The mind suffers far more from sudden shock than from prepared awareness. Now compare this to anxiety. Anxiety imagines disaster and spirals into helplessness. It creates fear without clarity. Negative visualization does the opposite. It calmly imagines difficulty, prepares the mind to respond wisely, and then returns to the present moment with gratitude for what still exists. That is a huge difference. Imagine, for a moment, losing something you deeply value. Your health, your freedom, your home, someone you love. Just for a few seconds, allow yourself to feel what life would be like without it. Notice what happens. Suddenly, the ordinary things you barely notice begin to glow with value. The morning coffee, the sound of laughter, a text message from someone you care about, the ability to walk outside under an open sky. Things that once felt guaranteed now feel precious. That is the hidden purpose of this practice. The Stoics used negative visualization because they never wanted gratitude to disappear through familiarity. They understood how easily human beings become blind to blessings simply because those blessings are always there. And when real loss eventually arrived, as it does for everyone, they were not completely shattered by it. Why? Because they had already trained themselves to remember one of life's deepest truths. Everything is temporary. And precisely because it is temporary, it becomes infinitely valuable. And once you begin to understand that everything in life is temporary, another Stoic truth begins to emerge, one that completely changes the way you define success, happiness, and even the meaning of a good life. Principle number 6. Virtue is the only true good. Zeno of Citium said, "Wealth is not among the number of good things. Virtue is the only true good." This idea is difficult for modern people to accept because almost every message our culture sends tells us the exact opposite. From the moment we are young, we are taught that happiness lives somewhere outside of us. In money, in status, in beauty, in fame, in power, in recognition, in achievement. The world constantly whispers the same promise. If you can just give more, then you will finally feel complete. More success, more attention, more possessions, more validation. And for a while, maybe it even works. Maybe success gives you excitement. Maybe praise gives you confidence. Maybe money gives you comfort, but only temporarily. Because sooner or later, people discover something unsettling. External success does not guarantee inner peace. The Stoics saw this clearly thousands of years ago. They had a different term for wealth, beauty, health, and social status. They called them preferred indifference. In other words, yes, it is preferable to be healthy than sick. Preferable to have stability rather than poverty. Preferable to be respected rather than rejected. But none of those things are the true source of a good life, because all of them can disappear. Money can vanish overnight. Beauty fades. Fame shifts from one person to another like wind changing direction. Power is fragile. Public opinion is unpredictable. And if your happiness depends entirely on those things, then your happiness is always vulnerable. You have probably seen this yourself. There are people who seem to have everything the world celebrates. Wealth, luxury, influence, attention. Yet beneath the surface, they are restless, anxious, lonely, or deeply unhappy. And then, there are others who possess very little by society's standards, yet something about them feels steady, calm, grounded, warm, They carry a quiet dignity that makes people trust them and feel safe around them. The Stoics would say that person possesses virtue, because virtue is the one thing that cannot be taken away by circumstance. It does not depend on the economy. It does not depend on luck. It does not depend on whether life goes according to plan. Virtue lives inside your choices. The Stoics centered their lives around 4 core virtues: wisdom, the ability to see clearly and act thoughtfully; justice, treating others fairly and recognizing your responsibility toward humanity; courage, facing fear, pain, hardship, and uncertainty without surrendering your character; and temperance, mastering excess, impulse, and desire instead of being ruled by them. Develop these 4 virtues, and according to the Stoics, you already possess the foundation of a meaningful life. Ignore them, and no amount of external success will ever fully satisfy you, because the emptiness inside cannot be filled by things outside. Now from there, Stoicism introduces another powerful mental exercise, one designed to instantly shrink anxiety and restore perspective whenever life begins to feel overwhelming. Principle number 7. The view from above. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Marcus Aurelius returned to this meditation again and again throughout his life, especially during moments of pressure and exhaustion. Imagine the weight he carried. He ruled the largest empire on earth. Wars erupted along the borders. Political enemies surrounded him. Disease spread through Rome. Millions depended on his decisions. And when all of it became too heavy, he practiced what the Stoics called the view from above. He would mentally zoom out. First, he would imagine himself high above the city of Rome, watching the streets below become smaller and quieter. Then he would rise even higher, until Rome itself became tiny. Then Italy. Then the earth, higher still, until the entire planet became nothing more than a small pale dot floating silently in the endless darkness of space. And from that perspective, he would ask himself a powerful question: how important is this problem in the grand sweep of time and existence? Now, this does not mean your struggles are meaningless. Pain is still pain. Difficulty is still difficulty. But the Stoics understood that many of the things we torture ourselves over are incredibly small when viewed from a wider perspective. The awkward sentence you replay in your mind from last week, the argument that consumed your emotions for days, the opinion of someone who may not even remember you a decade from now, the endless mental noise that feels enormous in the moment. The view from above dissolves that noise. It separates what is temporary from what is truly important. So try this for yourself. Whatever is stressing you right now, mentally zoom out. See your neighborhood from above, then your city, then your country, then the earth itself suspended in space. The universe stretches across roughly 93 billion light years, and has existed for around 13.8 billion years. And here you are, alive for a brief moment on a tiny rock spinning through the cosmos. Strangely, that realization is not depressing. It is liberating, because suddenly, many of your fears lose their grip, and at the same time, life itself starts to feel miraculous. You are conscious. You can think. You can love. You can create. You can choose who you become. That matters. And from the view above, most of the things that once felt overwhelming begin to fade like smoke. Which brings us naturally to principle number 8. Act in accordance with nature. Aristotle, whose ideas closely paralleled the Stoics in many ways, said, "Man is a social animal. He who lives only for himself is either a beast or a god." The Stoics believed human beings possess a deeper nature, what they called logos, a rational, social, and moral core. And when we live in harmony with that nature, life feels aligned, clear, meaningful. But when we betray that nature, suffering follows. So what does living according to nature actually mean? The Stoics gave a surprisingly practical answer. It means allowing reason, not impulse, to guide your decisions. It means refusing to let fear make your choices for you. It means not being controlled by ego, pride, anger, envy, or endless desire. It means remembering that you are part of something larger than yourself, a human community where every action affects others in ways you may never fully see. And perhaps most importantly, it means living consistently, not speaking about virtue while secretly practicing vice, not pretending to be one person in public and another behind closed doors. The Stoics believed inner peace comes when your actions and values finally align. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most fulfilled, most deeply yourself. Was it during moments of shallow pleasure? Or was it when you were being honest, helping someone, doing difficult but meaningful work, standing for something you believed in, being fully authentic without performing for approval? Usually, those are the moments people remember most, not because they were easy, but because they were real. And that leads directly into the next Stoic principle, one that completely transforms the way we look at hardship itself. Principle number 9. The obstacle is the way. And once you begin to see hardship differently, you stop asking how to avoid obstacles and start asking how to grow through them. That is where the next Stoic principle begins. Principle number 9. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This may be one of the most practical and transformative ideas in all of Stoicism because it completely overturns the normal way people think about problems. Most people see obstacles as signs to stop. The opportunity disappears. The application gets rejected. The relationship falls apart. The business fails. The plan collapses. The door closes. And immediately, the mind interprets the obstacle as proof that the path is over. But the Stoic mind responds differently. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" it asks, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of seeing resistance as the enemy, the Stoic sees resistance as training. Every obstacle contains information. Every setback reveals weakness. Every difficulty forces growth. The obstacle itself becomes the path forward. Think about history for a moment. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the light bulb. By some accounts, more than 10,000 attempts failed before one finally worked. Most people would have quit long before that point. But each failure taught him something the previous attempt could not. Winston Churchill faced political defeat again and again before becoming the leader history remembers during Britain's darkest hour. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job and told she was not fit for television. Imagine if they had interpreted those moments as permanent defeat. In every one of those stories, the obstacle was not a detour away from success. The obstacle created the person capable of success. Failure forged resilience. Difficulty built wisdom. Pressure revealed strength. The Stoics understood something most people never realize. Smooth paths rarely create strong people. It is resistance that sharpens character, the same way fire tempers steel. So think carefully about your own life. What is standing in your way right now? A rejection? A disappointment? A painful season? A setback you did not expect? Now ask yourself the Stoic question. What if this is not blocking the path? What if this is the path? Sometimes the very thing you wish would disappear is the thing shaping you into who you are meant to become. And once you understand that, another realization naturally follows. You are not alone in this journey. Principle number 10. Sympathia. We are all connected. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." Many people misunderstand Stoicism. They imagine Stoics as emotionally cold people who suppress feelings, isolate themselves, and stop caring about others. But that could not be further from the truth. The Stoics believed deeply in something they called sympathia, the interconnectedness of all things. They believed human beings are not isolated creatures fighting alone against the universe. We are connected through relationships, responsibilities, communities, and shared humanity. Every action ripples outward. Every kindness matters. Every cruelty matters. Every choice affects more people than we realize. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the most powerful empire in the world, constantly reminded himself of his obligations to others, to his family, to his citizens, to strangers, even to difficult people. He understood something profound. A meaningful life cannot be separated from service to others. His own well-being depended on the well-being of the people around him. And in today's world, that idea feels almost revolutionary. Modern culture constantly tells people to focus only on themselves, to build a personal brand, to become the main character, to treat life like a competition where everyone else is background scenery. But the Stoics rejected that mindset completely. They believe your neighbor's suffering affects you. The struggling stranger across the world is not entirely separate from you. Human beings flourish together or decline together. And if you think about the happiest and most fulfilled people you know, chances are they are not the most isolated people. They are usually the most connected, the most generous, the most compassionate, the most invested in the lives of others. Because deep fulfillment rarely comes from endless self-obsession. It comes from contribution, from relationships, from belonging, from feeling that your existence matters to more than just yourself. And once you understand that connection, Stoicism introduces another principle, one that may sound uncomfortable at first, but has the power to make you mentally stronger than almost anything else. Principle number 11. Voluntary discomfort. Choosing the hard path. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Now imagine this clearly. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He could have surrounded himself with luxury every single day of his life. And yet, he would intentionally sleep on hard floors. He would fast. He would wear rough clothing. He would walk through winter cold without comfort. Not because he was forced to, because he chose to. Why? Because he wanted to know whether comfort controlled him. He wanted to test himself, to discover whether he could endure hardship calmly, to prove that his peace of mind did not depend on luxury or convenience. And every time he voluntarily embraced discomfort, he felt freer afterward. Not because suffering itself was enjoyable, but because he became less dependent on comfort. That is an incredibly important distinction. We live in perhaps the most comfortable civilization in human history. Food arrives instantly. Entertainment never stops. Temperature is controlled almost everywhere. Technology removes friction from nearly every part of life. And yet people today are often more anxious, emotionally fragile, and unable to tolerate discomfort than ever before. The Stoics saw this danger long ago. Comfort, when endlessly pursued, eventually becomes a cage. A person who cannot function without their phone, their routines, their coffee, their entertainment, or constant convenience is not truly free. They are controlled by dependency. Voluntary discomfort breaks that dependency. It teaches the mind, I can survive discomfort. I can handle difficulty. I do not need perfect conditions to remain strong. That is why the Stoics deliberately chose challenges. The cold shower, the difficult workout, the uncomfortable truth, the hard conversation, the discipline of restraint, not because they love pain, but because they refuse to become afraid of it. Fear loses power when you willingly face the thing you fear. So start small. Tonight, skip one comfort you normally rely on. Tomorrow morning, end your shower with 30 seconds of cold water. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Sit quietly without reaching for your phone. Choose discipline once where you normally choose ease. These tiny moments may seem insignificant, but slowly, they build something powerful inside you. Resilience. And over time, that resilience becomes strength that circumstances cannot easily break. Which brings us to the final Stoic principle. Principle number 12. Eudaimonia, the flourishing life. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." And here we are. The final principle. The reason I saved this one for last is because it is not simply another Stoic technique or exercise. It is the destination all the other principles have been guiding you toward from the very beginning. And after everything we have explored, every hardship, every discipline, every shift in perspective, we finally arrive at the true destination of Stoicism itself. Principle number 12. Eudaimonia, the flourishing life. This is not just another practice to occasionally experiment with. It is not a morning routine, a motivational trick, or a habit you check off on certain days of the week. It is the ultimate aim behind every Stoic principle we have discussed so far. The ancient Greeks had a word for this ideal, eudaimonia. People often translate it as happiness, but that translation barely scratches the surface. Happiness, in the modern sense, usually describes a temporary emotion, a mood, a pleasant feeling that comes and goes depending on circumstances. You feel happy when life goes your way. You feel unhappy when it does not. But eudaimonia means something far deeper and far more stable. It means flourishing. It means fully becoming who you are capable of becoming. It means living a life that is deeply aligned with your highest values, your best character, your deepest nature, regardless of what the outside world is doing. Not a life judged by society's standards, not by status, not by applause, not by wealth, not by followers or recognition, but by the standard of your own highest self. And here is the great Stoic insight, the thing that separates Stoicism from nearly every modern idea of happiness. A flourishing life does not depend on what happens to you. Really let that sink in. According to the Stoics, the good life is available to you right now, not someday, not after success, not after you finally fix every problem, not after you become rich, admired, healed, or validated. Right now, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your past, regardless of your bank account, your relationship status, your fears, your failures, or your uncertainty about the future, because eudaimonia is not built from external conditions. It is built from internal choices. The repeated choice to live with wisdom instead of confusion, justice instead of selfishness, courage instead of fear, temperance instead of excess. It is the daily decision to use your mind well, to act with integrity, to treat people with dignity, to face suffering without losing yourself, and to remain faithful to your deepest values no matter what life places in front of you. And the Stoics did not merely preach these ideas. They lived them. Marcus Aurelius endured plague, endless war, political betrayal, and the deaths of his own children. Epictetus began life as a slave. Seneca faced exile and execution. And yet, by nearly every historical account, these men possessed a depth of peace, stability, and purpose that many people with perfect circumstances never discover. Why? Because their inner lives were not built on comfort. Their peace was not dependent on luck. Their strength was not dependent on circumstances. Their foundation came from philosophy, not in the academic sense, but as a daily practice of character. Every single day, they consciously chose who they would become regardless of what happened around them. That is the real Stoic secret, not controlling the world, controlling yourself within the world. Brian Tracy once echoed this same Stoic spirit when he said, "You have within you right now everything you need to deal with whatever the world can throw at you." And the Stoics would likely respond, "Not only do you have what you need, you have the potential for something extraordinary. A life so grounded that chaos cannot easily shake it. A life so purposeful that distraction loses its power. A life so internally strong that fear, envy, resentment, and petty suffering begin to loosen their grip on you. The kind of life where people quietly wonder, what is this person's secret? Well, now you know. It is ancient. It is practical. And after more than 2,000 years, it still works. So let's bring everything together. 12 principles, thousands of years of wisdom, and one central truth running through all of it. You are not a passive passenger in your life. You are the driver. And whether you realized it or not, the wheel has been in your hands the entire time. The Stoics never promised a painless life. They never claimed you could escape hardship, grief, disappointment, or uncertainty. What they offered was something far more powerful. A life where pain no longer controls you. A life where obstacles strengthen you instead of destroying you. A life where you wake up each day with clarity, discipline, resilience, and inner calm no matter what the world is doing around you. And that kind of life is not fantasy. It is practice. A practice that begins the moment you decide to live differently. So before we close, let's quickly revisit the 12 Stoic principles one final time. 1. Focus on what you can control and release what you cannot. 2. Love your fate, including the hardships that shape you. 3. Remember that you will die, and let that awareness make you fully alive. 4. Live in the present moment because real power exists only here. 5. Visualize loss so gratitude never disappears. 6. Understand that virtue is the only lasting good. 7. Gain perspective and zoom out from your problems. 8. Live in alignment with your true nature. 9. Recognize that the obstacle is often the path itself. 10. Remember that you are deeply connected to other people, and live accordingly. 11. Choose discomfort before life chooses it for you. And 12. Understand that the flourishing life is built from the inside out. The Stoics themselves are long gone, but their journals survived. Their letters survived. Their teachings survived, not because they were famous, but because what they discovered was true. And now, those ideas are in your hands. What you do with them is your choice. It always has been. And if you are new here, welcome. On this channel, we dive deep into Stoicism, ancient wisdom, self-mastery, and the philosophy of meaningful life. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us, because every single week we create videos designed to help you become calmer, wiser, stronger, and more resilient in a chaotic world. There is a playlist link right here filled with some of our most powerful Stoic videos. Start with your future self may thank you for it. Until next time, stay grounded, stay purposeful, and remember, the quality of your life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by who you choose to become.